everyone, my name is Jennifer Millen and I'm here to talk about how to use the CAMIO database. CAMIO is OCLC's catalog of art museum images online. It is a subscription-based service that's used primarily by students, faculty, and researchers of the visual arts. It is a growing online collection that documents works of art from a selection of prominent museums, such as the Victoria and Albert Museum in London, the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, and the Smithsonian American Art Museum in Washington, D.C. The images included in the database cover a wide range of art from around the world, from prehistoric to modern times, and also a variety of artistic forms, such as paintings, photography, sculpture, and textile art, to name a few. CAMIO can be accessed through Wayne State University's library website at lib.wayne.edu. I'm here at the Wayne State University library website at lib.wayne.edu, and I'm going to show you how you would access the CAMIO database through the library webpage. The first thing you want to do is you're going to want to click on the Article Databases tab, and under this drop down that says to search for a database by subject area, you're going to select Art and Art History, and it may ask you to enter in your access ID and password. I've already done that, but once you have done that and you see this screen, you're going to scroll down and you're going to click on CAMIO, which will bring you to the CAMIO homepage. The CAMIO homepage, and as you can see, it has a very basic interface. In the upper left-hand corner is where you would do your basic keyword search. There's also a link to the advanced search, which I will talk about a little bit later. And in this main part, it shows a description of the database and what kind of collections it features. Down here is some of the browsing options that you can do if you want to browse by categories such as photographs, prints, or sculpture. And there's a link to browse by museum, which I will talk about more when I talk about the basic search. Another interesting feature of this database is that it has links to translate in other languages. It appears to only be in a few Asian languages such as Japanese, Chinese, Thai, and Korean. And up here in the upper right-hand corner are some other links, such as the home page. If you are on one of the further pages, you could easily browse back to the home page. Here's the browse page, the favorites page, which I will again talk about a little bit later, and help topics. The thing I'm going to talk about is how to search in the CAMIO database. Before I get into doing basic and advanced searches, I want to talk a little bit about the search syntax of the database. As you may notice, there is no link to a thesaurus in CAMIO, and that is because they do not have one. The reason for this is that the information or the materials in the database are image resources versus articles, so having a controlled vocabulary would not be very practical, and it would probably not be very useful, so they don't have one. However, there is a link to some search tips under the help page that will explain how the database searches for items, and it can help you when you're doing either a basic or especially an advanced search. So I'm going to show you that right now, and I'm going to click on the help page. And as you see under the help topics, there are links to how to navigate in the database, how to browse, but for the purpose of what I'm going to talk about right now, we're going to click on the link that says Search Tips. Now, one thing that's interesting about CAMIO is that it does not use the usual Boolean operators of and, or, not, and it also does not recognize quotation marks. So if you're using one of the Boolean operators in advanced search, it's going to ignore it. One thing it does support is truncation, so you can still use the asterisk at the end of a root word, say paint, so it'll pull up painting, paint. It will still recognize that, but as far as Boolean operators and quotation marks, it does not. It does still use Boolean logic, but what it is it's trying to be more user-friendly, so it has fields already built in, such as exact phrase, none of, any, or all, which I'll show you a little bit more when I talk about the advanced search. To perform a basic search in CAMIO, there are two main ways you can do this. The first way is by using the search box, where you can search by a keyword on any item that you're interested in. So if you wanted to look at Chinese art, which I have in one of my selections right here, and hit enter or click go, it will bring up a list of items that have that description somewhere in the record. A second way that you can search is through browsing. Now, there are two ways you can browse. As you can see on the main page, there are already links to different works of art, and you can click on one of those and it'll bring up a bunch of items in that category. If you click on more, it'll bring you to the same page as when you hit browse up here. And as you can see, it has all the different categories. You can either browse by museum or by work type. So say if you wanted to look at a list of items that were at the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, when you were to click on it, it brings up a list of items in that collection. The next step in any search is actually looking at the items that are generated when you type in a keyword or you click under a browsing category. To view an item in a search, there are two ways you can do that. You can either click on the thumbnail or the title, which you can see is hyperlinked. So under here, I'm going to just click on the picture, and as you can see, this one is a picture of a tapestry, a Chinese tapestry. Now, as you can see, that shows a picture of the item, and then there's title, description, the creator, what museum it came from, the date of the object, all kinds of different information that will tell you about the item. Something that's very interesting, because this is an image-based database, is that you can do a lot of things to manipulate the image. So you can zoom in. As you can see, there's this toolbar up here that allows you to zoom in, zoom out. You can pan right and left, up and down. This little thumbnail right here, it'll let you show a maximum resolution of the image. So if you want to see a high resolution picture, this is very useful, especially with any type of art that shows a lot of detail. Because this is a textile art, you can see all the embroidery in it, all the colors. You can also have the image fit to the window so that you can look at some of the other information on the item. You can hide or show that second thumbnail. And something that's really interesting about this is you can also clip the image to another window. So say you wanted to cut this out or save it and put it into a Word document. If you were collecting a bunch of images together, you could do that. It's something very, very interesting about this database. Sometimes when you do a search for an item, the amount of items returned is more than you need. Rather than running another search, the CAMIO database allows you to refine within your results. For this example, I did a search for African art, and as you can see, it returned 936 works. That is a lot of items to go through. So instead, the database allows me to refine by different categories. As you'll notice, it's not as extensive as you would see with databases that index articles. That's mostly because this database deals with images and works of art, more visual items. So there aren't as many categories, but it is still very helpful when you want to narrow your search. So say in this case I wanted to look only at art that was in the 1800s. And as you can see, it narrows it down to 146 works, which is a little more manageable, but still quite a bit. And as you can see also, it has links where you can expand the different ways you can narrow your search. So say I wanted to look at ivory, and now we're down to 12. And again, that's much more manageable than looking at 900 items. It is a very useful way of narrowing your search, even in the basic search. If you're looking for something very specific, or you have a little bit more knowledge in searching, you can use the advanced search feature in CAMIO. As you can see on the home page of the database, there is a link to the advanced search, and that will take you to that screen where you can do that. As you can see, there are 4 ways you can do advanced search. Across all fields, selected fields, by proximity, and by date. And also within each advanced search, it allows you to select specific museums if you only want to look at the collection within a particular museum. For the sake of this example, I'm just going to keep that search all museums selected. For across all fields, that one is still very much a basic search, but it does allow you to do a little bit more with it because you can do different field searches, and this is where the Boolean logic comes into play, where you can select either all words, an exact phrase, which would be the same as putting quotation marks around a search term. Any words where, like for this one I had put in Renaissance paintings, it would turn up either Renaissance or paintings, not necessarily both. Or if you wanted to exclude a particular term, you could put something under none of the words, which would be the same as using not when you would do a Boolean search on your own. Another option you can use is selected fields. This is your standard advanced search you would see in most databases, where you can select different fields. This one has quite a bit. You can go by title of the work, subject, description, creator. If you see, when I scroll down, it even has some metadata fields. So say if you're very familiar with metadata schemas such as Dublin Core, which you will see a lot of images use Dublin Core with online items. You can use those as well. Now, of course, I'm not terribly familiar with that, so I probably would stick with your more basic title, subject, description. And also you can add more fields if you want to have more options or really narrow your search. A third way you can do by proximity. So this database does support proximity operators, such as if you want two terms to be close to each other to increase the relevance. So for example, if you wanted any type of art that was referencing the New Testament of the Bible, well, obviously if you just put in New Testament and you didn't want that exact phrase, it might have New York, and Testament might be in another paragraph or another part of the catalog record. It wouldn't really be very relevant. So something like this would be good for that. Or again, with even Renaissance paintings, if you wanted Renaissance painting close together, you can use the proximity search. A fourth way of searching is by date. Now, a major drawback to this is that this is only available for items at the San Francisco Museum of Art. And I tried to do a few searches under it, and it did not work whatsoever. So I wouldn't really recommend using this. It looks like it's still being developed, but it is still an interesting way, and maybe at some point this database, they'll refine this and make more collections available. It also looks like it's something that's more applicable to stuff that's more modern. So again, it's there, but I really don't think it's that useful. Often when you're doing a search in a database, you want to be able to view your search history or save your searches. CAMIO doesn't really do that. Instead, they have their favorites feature, which is how you're able to look at previous searches or save items that you've looked at. Now, as you can see on the home page, there is a link that says View Favorites. And that's going to take you to those types of items when you select a favorite. First, I'm going to show you how you add items to favorites when you're doing a search. To do that, I'm just going to click on a link under the browsing very quickly and select an item. And at the bottom of here, and you probably can't see it in the window, but at the bottom of the screen in the orange bar, at the very bottom left, it's going to say Add to Favorites, and you're going to click on that, and a little pop-up should come up that says that whatever item has been added to your favorites. And that's how you add an item. And you can do that for as many items. Something else you can do is that you can add a bunch of items at once. So say you just wanted to click a bunch of items, and then you can add selected items to favorites up here, and it would add all the items you selected into your favorites. Now to look at them, you want to go to this link up here in the upper right hand corner, and as you can see, there are a bunch of images. I don't know if there's a limit to how many you can put in here, but it keeps all the record of all the stuff, and you can click on it and get all the details. And there are a variety of things in this panel right here on the left that lets you tweak them. And one thing you can do is you can view it as a slideshow, and it'll open a separate window and you can do these previous next buttons and browse through each one. Unfortunately, not everything pops up as an image. I don't know if it's an issue with the database or that exact record. Most of them should show up as an image, but there are a few that don't. One thing that I think is really interesting about this favorites feature is that you can compare works of art. You can only do 2 at a time, and again, if it doesn't show up as an image, you can't use this feature, but most of them you can. So if I wanted to look at 8 and 9, and really quickly, just to explain the numbers, it's numbered from left to right across, so this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's how it's numbered. That's how you'd figure out which number is which. And then you click compare, and as you can see 2 works of art next to each other. And the toolbar that I had mentioned previously that will show up in each record, you can still do that. You can zoom in. You can look at a high-resolution photograph. You can pan. Oops, that went the wrong direction. Then you can look at each one close together. This would be very useful, I would think, for someone researching 2 different styles of art or a particular style of art from a different century and how things may be changed. So I really like that feature. It's something that I think would be really useful to many people. Now, if you go through, say you're doing a particular project and you want to remove stuff once you no longer need them, under here it says you can remove items. So say I wanted to remove this one, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I could remove item number 5, click remove, hit OK, and now it's gone. In addition to removing an item, you can also move things around. So if you want a bunch in one area or you just want to reorganize something, I could move maybe the last item to position 1. So my most recent one that I favorited would be at the top. One more thing that you can do under your favorites is that this is similar to exporting an item. So if you're in a typical article database that deals with journal articles and it lets you export a bibliography or a particular article and you can save it, CAMIO allows you to take your favorites and you can save them as a web page. You can't really do this with individual items. You can only do this out of your favorites window. So unfortunately, individual items, you can't export them. You can copy the information, save the picture, but you can't really formally export them. But in your favorites, you can take this page and create a web page from it. Or you can actually save it as a web page to import into a blog or into a website. And it will link back to the CAMIO database, so in terms of copyright, there shouldn't be any issues. But just to show you an example of how you would do this, is that I don't have a web page address, so it defaults to CAMIO favorites, or you can put another name in there, you can put a web page address in there. It doesn't really matter as long as something's in that bar. And then you hit create, and it's going to open a new window, and this is just a web page document. And then you're going to want to save this. So I'm going to hit save page as, and then it's going to pop up. I already had it saved in here previously. I'm going to resave it. Just make sure it says web page HTML only. Hit save. And then there you go. You have a HTML document saved, and you can import it into a blog or onto your website if you have one. And so this would be a really neat way of documenting a bunch of items that you've looked at, especially very useful if you wanted to show maybe a selection of art styles, or if you wanted to compare different forms of art from different time periods, different cultures. It's definitely a very interesting way of documenting your search. Today I've talked about how to use CAMIO and the various features of the database. I've discussed how to perform basic and advanced searches, how to view and refine search results, and how to use the favorites feature to save previous searches, as well as saving items to a web document. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and happy searching!